All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I am so pumped to share our guests with you here today. This is David Zarghami. Now, David is the co-founder of the Zarghami Group. They are the number one sales team across all brokerages out of Sarasota, Florida. And David is an amazing dude. I've been coaching him now for almost 2 years, and he's got a great story, a great message today about transformation. And we're going to walk you through the transformation that David has built and the transformation that he has lived through over roughly the last 18 months. At least this is what I've seen. And so you're in for a real treat today. David, thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, Jordan, it's an honor to be able to hopefully add a little bit of value from all that I've learned from you over the last couple of years. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, one thing is that David is a 49ers fan. I'm a Chiefs fan, and you guys all know what went down earlier this year. So we're going to do our best to leave that out of today's conversation, right, David? I know you're super thrilled that I just brought that up.
That's the mental health part of this conversation, and I don't know why we had to go there right off the bat, but thank you. Yes.
I wanted to get the elephant out of the room, right? As my good friend Phil Jones says, that the quickest way to get the elephant out of the room is to acknowledge that it's there.
So, acknowledge, yeah. Well, judging by Super Bowl trophies, we're still ahead, I think.
Yeah. If we're living in the past, you're doing a great job. That's awesome. Yeah. That's really great. All right, so let's dive in. So where this all came from is, sometimes as a coach, one thing, I keep all of the notes from each client that I have. All their notes go into one document. And sometimes this document, I think David's at this point is somewhere in the 163 pages range. And sometimes what I'll do is I like to go back over the notes, and specifically going all the way back to our first call. And with David, our first call was in January of 2023. And one of the things that immediately emerged from what we were talking about together was this need for him to really get his health and his exercise on track. That was something that he had started and stopped, and then would get back on the train and then kind of fall off again. And so I was talking to him, I don't know, about a month ago, and I had reviewed that first call, and I said, "Hey, David, on our very first call, you had mentioned that the exercise habit, for example, was kind of a challenge for you. You would start and stop. But today, I'm wondering, where's that habit at?" And do you remember how you answered that question, David?
Yeah, I do. I didn't hesitate, and I just said it's locked in. It's that moment in Forrest Gump when he's talking about how Lieutenant Dan invested in some Apple stock. And he got a letter from him and said, we don't have to worry about money no more. And he's like, well, that's good. One less thing. That's kind of how I feel about exercise. One less thing. I just don't worry about it.
Yeah. And he said it's locked in and engaged. That was what he said. And I was like, wow, what a great answer. And so what I wanted everybody to hear, David, was number one, like, you had kind of struggled with this before, right? This was something that didn't come natural easy to you. Is that right?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
And so
food, go ahead.
No, I'm listening. Go ahead.
I've always aspired to be fit and exercise. There's been periods of my life, mostly before kids, where I considered myself pretty fit, did some half marathons in different periods and stuff. My wife and I, we've been married coming up on 19 years, and we have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. And, this has been an 11-year journey of building this real estate business together. And we've just found that in that last, post kids time period, business owners and kids just take all the energy. Right. And so it's just been really herky jerky, start and stop. One of us would maybe be on track for a few months, and that was cool for that person, but it was kind of like a trade-off of something else. Hey, this other one has the kids are supporting me here, so I could do this, or vice versa, and just really not able to get any consistency over time and or build any habits. So I think that's where I was at when I came to you. It was just a lot of frustrations, self-loathing in certain ways. Like, don't like feeling like this. I don't like how I look. And so just really frustrated looking for something to be different.
Yeah. Yeah. And so walk us through that, David. What was different about this time for those people out there that are hearing this? And I think we've all been there, right? Especially with our health or the way that we look. And, we've all experienced what I call the dissipation of drive. We get excited about something, we start taking action, and then we gradually and suddenly stop. And we end up right back where we were with just a little bit more frustration, sometimes with a little bit more weight. Um, what was it that was different about this time? How did you get yourself to stick to it?
I think it was a combination of multiple things. I mean, obviously, you have to be in a spot to be, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And so, I think we had struggled. We'd had one of the best. That was the first year we broke through as the top selling team in our marketplace. I think we had 170 million in sales, and it was like all this business success. However, I told you I was burnt. I just said I was burnt and didn't have energy, enthusiasm for it. And I remember one of your first messages. I don't think I had hired you yet. It was in like an exploratory call, and you listened to me for a bit, and you said, you need a different fuel source, right? Like whatever you've done to get to this point isn't going to serve you anymore. You need to do it differently. And so I think that was an aha for me, was that, I was gritting my way through some stuff up until that point and neglecting personal health and self-care. And so it just kind of had that awakening that it was time to make that a priority. And it was for multiple reasons. It was for how I showed up in my business. More importantly, it's for how I showed up for my wife and for my kids and in those relationships. And so, that was what got us there, to that point of being ready to do something different.
Okay. Got it. So the funny thing about that, David, is like somebody in the audience, and you don't even have to be in real estate to kind of grasp the point here, right? Broke through 170 million in sales volume, and you're now number one in your market, right? In your category. So whether you are a chiropractor, or maybe you are an insurance person, like he's number one. He and his wife have just broken the ceiling and becoming the number one in their category in their market. And yet it wasn't as cool or as fulfilling as you had hoped it would be, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The thought is like, okay, I don't want to do that again. You push really hard for something, then you get it, and you're like, that wasn't fun, right? It didn't feel great. It definitely, and that's why when you said your fuel source, the way you are operating, is not going to sustain you. And so I was okay doing something different. I was ready for it.
Yeah. And that's something that a lot of people have to hear, David. It's, when you think about driving a car, for example, if you and I get out on a highway and let's just say we're in a gas powered car and we lay the pedal down, well, if we're going 25 miles an hour when we're on the on ramp to get up to 70 or 75, virtually any car today, that's just going to take a matter of seconds. And we can drive the whole distance from Kansas City to Florida if we wanted to, using a gas powered car. And yet what I share with people is like, if I took that car and I put it in a garage and I shut the door and I left it on and I said, hey, David, for $10,000, would you sit in here for 3 hours with that car running? And his response would be no, right? Because it would kill him. Now, if I took a Tesla or a Rivian, a car that is based off of a renewable, and I left it running in that garage with you in it, and the garage door down for 10 grand, would you sit here for 3 hours? And the answer is yeah. And so the moral of the story is that when you're operating from fear, when you're operating from that push energy all the time, you're grinding it out, it works to achieve a result. You became number one in your market. But the challenge is just like a gas powered car, it burns into the environment and it ultimately changes the environment, and not for the better. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So walk us through some of the changes that you made. Like, you mentally made the shift, right? This isn't working for me anymore. I'm ready and I'm willing to try something else. Now let's pull it into the dirt. Like, what was it that you specifically did what was the program or the structure that you built to get yourself into shape physically?
Yeah, so the two elements, of course, are exercise and nutrition, and I've struggled
Mhm.
with both. Enjoy exercising, just all the challenges of being business owners and parents, and when you find the time. I don't like waking up in the dark and getting out on the street at 5 a.m. It doesn't come. That's a hard habit for me to crack. Um, my wife and I had gotten into some group exercise classes, in the area, and we seemed to be trading off where she would be on a track where she, because it was one of those, if I go do this, I need you to be in charge of these things, right? So you hold this and I'll do that. And so, she was actually most recently on a kick where she was going 2 times a week, maybe three in a big week. And that was great. I was excited for her, but I was off track.
Mhm.
So we made the decision to look into a way we could manage that differently. And our solution that just worked for us was we actually hired a trainer to come to our house. And we didn't do it early in the morning. We did it 2 weekday afternoons. And then that trainer had group classes on the weekends, which we could hit. Um, and we would just take the kids with us, and that worked out. But the beauty of having those 2 weekday afternoons at the house, it was a few layers that worked. It was one, accountability, right? Someone was literally going to show up in the driveway, and so we
Mhm.
couldn't not feel like it. You literally had to show up because that person was going to be there. Two, my wife and I were both able to participate every single time. We knew the kids were in the house, or they could come out and hang out outside with us and make it a family thing, but there was no guilt or like coordinating of childcare, that sort of thing. They're old enough now; they're not going to stick their fingers in an electric socket. So we just knew as long as we're home, they're home. They'll come out if someone's bleeding. We're okay, and we could guilt free be together in the driveway working out. And so we basically built on that plan, and so we were able to get consistently 4 workouts, 4 intense, functional fitness, weightlifting, cardio workouts in like a HIIT style every single week. And so
Mhm.
that really from the time we started in January, we got on that track, and it's been consistent. Sometimes we get in 5. In a bad week, we might miss one because of a life circumstance, and that's 3. But that's the deviation. And if we go on vacation, that was kind of one of my fears. The first vacation that we went on post starting that plan was, I just know how easy it is to throw everything out the window. And yet we've stuck to a 50% rule on vacation, which is, work out at least half of your normal workout routine. So if you do 4 times a week on that week of vacation, you got to get in at least 2. And that's
Yeah.
sort of a flex that allows you to enjoy some of your more downtime, but still not throw it out the window. And it's more, those 2 workouts don't really matter. What matters is the psychology of saying, I didn't just quit. So yeah, the workouts have been fantastic. And then on the nutrition side, you connected me, Jordan, with a nutrition coach, a consultant who we worked with and did one of these really intense sort of elimination, plans where you have to strip out everything for a couple weeks, couple miserable weeks.
Yep.
It's
I
no
remember
fun,
that.
but luckily, yeah, I know you've done it. Luckily, you don't do that too often, and then after those couple weeks, you're able to layer some things back in. So we, lost some weight through that and got into some habits on the food side. And honestly, over the course of about 6 months, my wife and I each, lost close to 30 pounds. So it was really kind of a body composition transformation. And, by doing it consistently for a period of months and seeing that payoff, that was just a huge boost in all the fun reasons that, working out consistently and eating right can enhance your life. And so doing it together and experiencing that really, I think, locked in our desire to maintain and not go backwards.
Yeah. Well, and what I hear when you shared that, like, everybody knows that my all-time favorite coaching formula comes from the inner game of tennis, and it's performance equals potential minus interference. And when we looked at, when you think about what was the interference that you removed in order to kind of tap your potential and perform in the exercise habit, well, one, you got to have childcare, and if you're not there, then Tony has to do it. So you just solve that by having the person come to your house, right? If you aren't somebody like I'm the same way, I am not going to get up in the morning and crush a hardcore workout. My body just does not like that. And so doing it in the afternoon, making sure that you're tailoring it to what works for you. And I think the other thing on this is like that rule that you said of 50-50, that you're not going to walk around in the expectation that you'll maintain this every single week, but you do have a pre-decided plan when you go on vacation to keep yourself on track and on the rails, which is that 50% rule, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
really
this.
Impactful.
So good. So good. I remember that when it was Susie, actually. We had Susie on a few weeks ago with Wellness Wednesday. She was the nutritionist, and David was not super happy during that elimination period. That is not easy, is it?
No, there's nothing fun about it. But it's effective, and you drop weight, which is fun, and feeling better about those things. And then, of course, the goal is how do you. That first part is not sustainable, right? So the challenge is, can I do this in a sustainable way over the long term that I can live with? And that's been, that's still the ongoing challenge. And so I'm working with it. So we lost 30 pounds, felt this body transformation. I said, for the first time in my adult life, I feel comfortable in my skin, and I'm enjoying that. And that's been cool. It's been a cool benefit. It's not the only reason to do this, but it doesn't hurt. So then, it's funny because through that process, I started using MyFitnessPal to track food.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember fussing at you about it one time, right? Because my thought process at the time was like, we're on these things all day. And now I find myself sitting down, it's dinner, and I'm trying to get with my family and sit down. And instead I pull out this phone and I'm fumbling through trying to enter the recipe and get it accurate. And it just feels like now I have another reason to be on this thing when I'm supposed to be with family. And I was really rebelling against that.
Yep.
And so I think I was basically saying, I'm just not going to do it, Jordan. Like I don't care that much to track all the food. And I don't know if you remember what you said to me, but your comment at the time, I don't know. Your comment at the time was, well, that's fine. You said, but you'll never, perform at the highest level physically if you don't track everything you put in your mouth. I was like, oh, okay. That hit me kind of hard. I'm like, all right, well, I guess it's my choice then. I can choose your heart. Right.
Yep.
And so it wasn't in that moment that I was able to make that decision right away, but I came back to it. I had lost that initial bit of weight, and then felt like I was plateauing a little bit. And that was irritating because for the first, 6 months of that transformation, I'd seen progress weekly. And I was like, yeah, there's a payoff here. There's a payoff here. And then you kind of start to plateau a little bit, and you don't quite see the continued progress. And that was frustrating, and it was demotivating. Yeah. And so I hired a new, because I'd stopped doing the nutrition coaching. So I got a new nutrition coach, and, he said that the next 5 pounds are going to be harder than the first 30. I was like, well, that sucks. That's not fun at all. And so, but what I have done is I've built in a habit of tracking food, and I don't rebel against it anymore. I appreciate it. And I don't know what it was exactly, but it was cool to see my own growth as something that I was like, I won't do that. That is deteriorating my quality of life to have to enter everything I eat. I had all these kind of negative charges around it. And just through appreciating that is now my one mechanism to control what goes in, and that matters. Like, we don't put shit in the gas tank of your car. You wouldn't pay attention to what you put in there. Sorry, you would not pay attention to what you put in there. You only put the right thing, but we put so much shit in our face without thinking about it, without being purposeful. And so that was like, just came to this self-awareness. I want to be purposeful about what goes in and be thoughtful and pay attention. It doesn't mean I have to restrict everything, just need to be aware. So I built that habit in, and I'm really proud of it right now. And my kids know that I track foods. And my daughter, I was tucking her in last night, and she was asking me questions about, how do you track that? And what does it look like? And so, it's having a cool dialogue with her and making sure she knows it's not about restricting, and it's not about not having fun. It's just about being purposeful. What you put in matters, because this is our vehicle. So that's been a really fun piece of it. I'm still, struggling against those, the diminishing returns that you get in year 3, I guess, of this journey. And sometimes I struggle with the motivation for that, but like I told you in the beginning, that the exercise habit's locked in, and now I'm just really fine tuning the nutrition piece, and that's the next challenge going forward.
Yeah, but the other thing, David, that I want to give you tremendous credit for is that, once we started getting this going and you had the exercise habit was getting locked in, I knew you were doing it, and we were I wouldn't say I was perfect as your coach at checking in on it, but we had regular conversations about it. And then we had regular conversations about, the nutrition and the food and all that. And then we switched gears and we started talking about, the mental hygiene and specifically around meditation. And, to your credit, and this may be more than anybody else that I've ever coached. When we started implementing the exercise of priming, right, which we both are big Tony Robbins fans. David goes to, I think he's been more Tony Robbins programs than I have. But priming being an exercise in the morning that you really are diligent about. And I know you're not perfect. Nobody is, but would you mind sharing with everybody kind of the journey as it relates to the priming exercise and meditation as a regular practice for you?
Yeah. And to your point, full disclaimer, not perfect here, an area of opportunity. And I have found it to be incredibly beneficial. So, I told Jordan, that I found great value in the morning ritual of taking my mind through a process. And the best version of that I had found was a Tony Robbins exercise. If you've ever done a Tony Robbins live event, he'll take you through a 20+ minute, series of it's basically a led meditation, where you're visualizing some things, you're giving gratitude, you're starting with some deep breathing exercises to just oxygenate your body and get all the good vibes flowing, and then you go into some visualization and some gratitude and some impactful things. And there's a 20-minute YouTube clip that I have of Tony doing that, and I used to play it in my car on my drive to work, and that's that worked well for me for quite a while. But I was lamenting to Jordan, I was saying, it just, this 20+ minutes. And there's a part in that where you kind of have to, scream to let your energy out, and as I was embarrassed, like, you looking at the light, who's looking at me and paying attention. And so I'm kind of self-conscious. And, Jordan helped me out with basically a smaller digestible version of that. And he said, he gave me I don't know if you want me to lay it out or not.
Sure.
But
yeah,
he
go
gave me
for it.
a very simple formula that basically took what was 20+ minutes and shrunk it down to 5, a 5 or 6 minute process in the morning. And so it starts with some breathing exercises that, again, just get you oxygenated. And then it goes right into, there's 3 questions, and Jordan added music for me, which I found really impactful. So we chose a track that Jordan recommended that's just kind of an instrumental, but it's got a really good vibe. Music is such a powerful emotional motivator. So, I turn on this music track, just, find a spot to sit in the morning, throw the headphones on, start the song, get the breath work in, and then go right into answering these 3 questions that Jordan gave me. And the first one is, what am I grateful for? Right. And just just making that list mentally of all the things that I feel just incredibly grateful for. And they could be silly and trivial, like, the shoes that I get to wear so that I don't step on sharp things. Right. And of course, that my lungs work, and that, we have all my senses, and of course, our family and the business we've built, and our house that keeps us safe, all these wonderful things. But it's just, you're kind of flooding your brain with like an abundance of things that there are around us to be grateful for. You're getting your brain to search, right? Because our brain's like Google. It's gonna give us what we ask for,
That's
what we
right.
tell it to look for. The second question in that exercise is, what are you proud of? Right. So what are you grateful for? Second comes, what are you proud of? And for me, and you can go so many different directions on that one, but I always would start that one with, like, I'm really proud of me. Like, I'm proud of my growth. I'm proud of, because I can tend to be pretty harsh with myself. My internal critic can chime in a lot. So that was an opportunity for me to really reflect on, man, I've made some freaking progress, right? Like, I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. So many areas to continue to improve upon, but dang, if I just look back for a minute and go, like, I've been working hard and I've grown. And so I just would kind of answer that question with different ways that I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the family that I get to, to lead or co-lead. and, our kids and what they're doing. And so a lot of just points of pride and self-gratitude. And then the third is a visualization, right? See your goals as done. So, project forward in your mind what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like when the things that are important to you are accomplished. And so just going through that morning exercise for 5 or 6 minutes. It's funny, in any given day, I can't sit there and say, oh, I feel better today because I did that. But in any given 3-week period, if I'm doing it for 3 weeks and being like, how am I feeling right now versus a 3-week period where I'm not, it's a distinguishable difference.
Yeah.
Right.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it?
It makes a huge difference. So we've been talking about this idea of mental hygiene, and, we get up, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we do all these other things for physical hygiene. But if you're like me, how often do you neglect the things you need to do to get your head in the right space? And so that's been a big piece of the puzzle too.
Yeah. And this is something that you've adopted, and I get it. Like, we're not all perfect. And yet one thing that I just want to acknowledge is like, this type of transformation that he's experiencing. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that David doesn't have pain in his life or uncertainty. We all do, right? Those are not things that we ever get to exonerate ourselves from. And yet when you start to nail this, as far as like your exercise, your nutrition, and you're taking care of the mental side of things, it just opens up a whole new series of possibilities for you. And what I'm curious about, David, is like, what's the downriver impact? What have been what has changed in your household or in your life as a result of you nailing the exercise habit, getting better with the nutrition, and practicing mental hygiene the way that you have?
Yeah. There's a lot of them. I also choose to believe that because my kids are, 8 and 13, and they, don't they don't always sit there and go, great lesson today, Dad. Right? They're more like, ugh, why are you talking to me about this again? So I also choose to believe there's a lot more of them coming, further downriver, and you'll catch glimpses of it when you hear like my son giving advice to a friend, right? And he's telling you gotta own your stuff, man. You got, you gotta control the stuff you can control. But no, I firmly believe that my relationship with my wife, is better and stronger because we do this together, right? Because we work out and do hard things together. And that's been our mantra for the kids, right? Is that this is what our family does, right? We work on our bodies to be strong, also to do hard things, literally for the sake of doing hard things. So we invested in a cold plunge tub. So we have that sitting at the house, and the kids have seen us, I'm more into it than my wife. She's still not a huge fan because it literally makes your brain scream at you. Like, get the
it sucks no matter how long you've been doing it. Cold plunging sucks. It just sucks.
It sucks. Yeah, it sucks. But certain days it sucks more, and the more consistently you do, it sucks a little bit less.
A little bit, not much, but a little.
Yeah. But so my son, he's 13. He's tried it a few times. But it was neat. He had a friend over on the football team, and they were both doing it. So my son was flexing, right? He wanted to go first, and he wanted to get in there and show him how long he could do it. And then his friend got in, and you just see his like face explode, and he's like, get me out of here. Right. And I was talking to my boy about that. Like, do you see how, because you've done that several times and you knew what to expect, like you were able to tell your brain to overcome the signals that your body was sending to you. And do you see the difference as someone who hadn't done that before? Like, so there's just some really cool, parent-kid relationship, points there. And I think some of it's just straight osmosis, right? Like, for the last 2 years now, our kids know the culture of our family is working out, and we're outside working out. And my daughter's not there yet. She's 8, but my son has just naturally gravitated. He started to ask us if he can work out with us, and it's not us making him do it. He's asking to do it. And so he was with us yesterday and working out, and the coach we have now has a big thing of sprints on the street. And so we do our weight stuff, and then he's like, to the street, right? And we're sprinting up and down. So the whole neighborhood kind of knows that our family's outside working out, and they honk the horn and they wave as they're going by, and we get all these comments about, wow, you guys are doing great. You look awesome. This is amazing. But, yesterday we're literally, my son and I are sprinting down the street and racing back, and he's to the point I'm having a hard time beating him. But I love that we're instilling in him this culture of like doing hard things and pushing himself to reach goals, and building up this physical health habit at a time much younger than I ever had any focus on that, right? So, the goal to the downriver is that my kids will not deal with these things in their 40s. They'll, have these habits in place and be able to deal with better quality problems, right? As they grow up. So there's no doubt the health permeation throughout the family, I believe, will have ripple effects for a long time.
Yeah. And what I love so much about that, David, is that, I think that we're either warnings or examples to people, right? And you're being an example to them. You're not out there trying to get him to do something that you're not in the trenches doing. And he joined you, as you mentioned, through osmosis. And I think that, as it's probably my all-time favorite coaching question is, how well are you leading yourself? And when it comes to a family or it comes to a business, everything that you do, how high you grow is going to be predicated on that how well are you leading yourself, and that you and your wife are doing the hard things, and that's showing up for your kids. And I just think it's so cool how that's just an example to them, and that they'll have those, that they'll never struggle. Well, who knows, but odds are they're never going to struggle with the exercise habit because they learned it from mom and dad. It's just who we are. It's what we do in this house, right?
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope for sure.
Yeah. Well, dude, I'm really proud of you. You've done so well, and the people here today, I know, are better for your message and for your example and the work that you've put into your own personal transformation. So, David, thank you for being here today, and thank you for pouring into our community. I so appreciate it.
It's an honor. It's very much a work in progress. Thank you for being the beacon of light you've been for me on the journey, and wouldn't be here without you. So thank you. I hope this helps in some small way.
I'm sure it did. I mean, shoot, I talk to you all the time, and I've got a page of notes. So I would imagine they do too. So, all right, everybody, thank you for being here. We will be back same time, same place next week on Wellness Wednesday, 7:30 Central. So join us there. Between now and then, remember, live freed. Thanks, everybody.